The great doors of the Galactic Council building opened with a soft hiss. Inside, beings from across the galaxy walked through metal detectors and security scanners. Guards checked every visitor for weapons. No one was allowed to bring anything dangerous into the council chambers. This rule had been in place for 300 years. It started after a terrible day known as the Zephyrian Massacre. On that day, Ambassador Krultak from the Vorthic Empire had hidden a plasma weapon in his robes. During a meeting about trade routes, he became angry and opened fire. 17 delegates from 6 different worlds died in the attack. Blood covered the marble floors, and the screams echoed through the halls for hours. After that day, the Council made a new law. No weapons of any kind could enter the chambers. Not guns, not knives, not even small tools that could hurt someone. Every species had to follow this rule, without exception. Captain John Blake stood in the observation area above the main chamber. He watched as different alien species walked through the security checks. Each group looked nervous as they handed over their weapons to the guards. The Crotheri were tall, lizard-like beings with thick scales. They wore their traditional armor, but they had to remove all the energy weapons built into it. The guards carefully checked every piece of metal on their bodies. The Crotheri ambassador, Vextar, clicked his tongue in annoyance as he removed his ceremonial sword. His people had carried weapons for thousands of years. Being without them felt wrong. Next came the Zalonians. These beings looked like living crystals that walked on 2 legs. Their bodies were naturally sharp and could cut through most materials. Before entering the chamber, they had to put special covers over their razor-sharp fingers and arms. The covers were made of soft material that would prevent them from hurting anyone by accident. The Meridian traders were small, peaceful creatures with tentacles instead of arms. Even they had to give up their sonic disruptors. These weapons used sound waves to stun attackers, but they were still considered dangerous. Elder Sevtar, their leader, moved slowly as he placed his weapon in the security vault. His large eyes showed sadness at being separated from his protection. The Vorthic Empire's delegates were the most heavily armed. They looked like giant insects with 4 arms and hard shells covering their bodies. Ambassador Thrakmer stood over, 7 feet tall, with mandibles that clicked when he was angry or nervous. His people were known as the fiercest warriors in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds through pure strength and violence. Thrakmar's guards carried energy rifles, plasma cannons, and molecular disruptors. The security team needed special equipment just to handle all their weapons. The Vorthic ambassador himself carried a ceremonial warhammer that could crush steel. He looked uncomfortable as he handed it over to the human guard. Every species followed the same process. They arrived with weapons, armor, and guards. They passed through security. They entered the chamber unarmed and unprotected. Every species, except one, the human delegation walked straight through the main entrance without stopping at security. Ambassador Lisa Rodriguez led the group with calm confidence. She wore a simple black suit with no armor or protection. Behind her walked Dr. Alan Carter, a scientist who studied alien life forms. He carried only a datapad with his research notes. Commander Rita Stone, the military representative, wore her dress uniform, but no weapons or defensive equipment. 3 humans walked past all the security stations and guards. No one stopped them. No one asked them to remove weapons. They had none to remove. They walked into the council chambers, completely unarmed and unguarded. The other species watched. This with confusion and concern. How could any intelligent beings feel safe in a room full of potential enemies without any protection? Ambassador Thrakmer clicked his mandibles as he watched the humans enter. He turned to his aide, a younger Vorthic named Krelder. "Look at them," Thrakmer said in his native language. They walk among us like prey among predators. Do they not understand that words can kill as surely as weapons in these chambers? Krelder's 4 eyes focused on the human delegation. Perhaps they are simply foolish, Ambassador. Their species is young and inexperienced in galactic politics. Or perhaps, said a soft voice behind them, they know something we do not. Both. Vorthik turned to see Elder Sevtar approaching. The old Meridian's tentacles swayed gently as he moved. His species had been part of the Council for over 1,000 years. They had seen many civilizations rise and fall. What do you mean, Elder? Thrakmar asked. Sevtar's large eyes looked toward the human delegation. I have watched the humans for 50 years, since they first joined the Council. In all that time, I have never seen them bring a weapon into these chambers. Not once. That proves they are weak, Crowther said quickly. Does it? Sevtar replied. Or does it prove they are strong in ways we do not understand? The old Meridian moved away, leaving the Vorthik to think about his words. Other delegates nearby had heard the conversation. They began to whisper among themselves about the strange human behavior. The truth was that humans had indeed learned something the other species had not. During their evolution on Earth, they had discovered that the most dangerous predator was not always the one with the biggest claws or the strongest bite. Sometimes the most dangerous predator was the one that could convince others to hunt for it. But this lesson would take time to reveal itself. For now, the Council prepared to begin another session. Representatives from 43 different worlds took their seats in the Great Chamber. Guards stood outside the sealed doors. Inside, the delegates sat without weapons, relying on words and law to settle their differences. Only the humans seemed truly comfortable with this arrangement. They sat relaxed in their chairs, ready to face whatever challenges the day might bring. They had no weapons, no armor, and no guards. Yet somehow, they appeared to be the most confident beings in the entire chamber. The session was about to begin, and the galaxy would soon learn why being unarmed was a privilege that only humans could afford. The great chamber fell silent as Council Speaker Mordon called the session to order. The tall, blue-skinned Altarian struck his ceremonial staff against the floor 3 times. The sound echoed through the vast room, reaching every corner where delegates from across the galaxy sat waiting. The Council will hear the dispute between the hegemony of Keth and the Crystalline Collective, Mordon announced. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's sound system. Ambassador Korvash of the Cathari stood first. His people looked like tall, thin humanoids with gray skin and large black eyes. They were known for their advanced technology and their pride in exploration. Korvash wore robes decorated with star maps, showing all the worlds his people had discovered. Honored delegates, Korvash began, his voice sharp with anger. The Crystalline Collective has stolen what rightfully belongs to the Cathari people. 300 years ago, our deep space probe, the Starseeker, was the first to enter the Tau Ceti system. We mapped every planet, every asteroid, every particle of dust. By the ancient laws of discovery, that system belongs to us. He pressed a button on his podium, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed the Tau Ceti system with detailed star charts and navigation data. The information was clearly marked with Cathari symbols and dates. These records prove our claim, Korvash continued. The Starseeker transmitted this data back to Cathari Prime on the 15th day of the 7th month, 2724. We have been the legal owners of this system for 3 centuries. Murmurs of agreement came from some delegates. The law of first discovery was old and well established. Many species had used it to claim territory across the galaxy. Ambassador Zarthex of the Crystalline Collective rose to respond. Her people were beautiful to look at, with bodies that seemed to be made of living crystal. Light passed through them in rainbow patterns, creating shifting colors as they moved. But their beauty hid a fierce determination to protect what they believed was theirs. The Cathari speak of ancient laws, Zarthix said, her voice ringing like crystal bells. But they forget newer laws about development and settlement. Yes, they sent a probe through our system, but they did nothing with their discovery for 50 years. Her own holographic display appeared, showing the same star system. But this display focused on mining stations, settlements, and industrial facilities. All of them were clearly marked with crystalline collective symbols. While the Cathari collected their data and filed their reports, we built a civilization, Zarthex declared. We established the first permanent settlement on Tau Ceti Prime. We built the mining stations that extract valuable minerals from the asteroid belt. We created the trade routes that bring prosperity to nearby systems. We turned an empty system into a thriving community. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates supported the Cathari claim based on first discovery. Others agreed with the crystalline collective's argument about development and settlement. Voices rose in dozens of different languages as the debate grew heated. Ambassador Thrakmer of the Vorthic Empire stood and slammed his fist on his podium. The sound was like thunder in the chamber. Enough talk, he roared. Both sides are weak. The Vorthic Empire could take this system from either of you without effort. Perhaps we should claim it for ourselves. The threat was clear. The Vorthic military was powerful enough to destroy both the Cathari and the crystalline collective if they chose to. Fear began to spread through the chamber as other small species realized they might be next. Elder Sevtar of the Meridians stood slowly. His tentacles trembled with age and worry. Violence solves nothing, Ambassador Thrakmer. We are here to find peaceful solutions, not to make threats. Peace is a luxury for the strong, Thrakmer replied, his mandibles clicking. The weak must accept whatever the strong decide to give them. The chamber was on the edge of chaos. Old alliances were being tested, and new enemies were being made. It seemed like the kind of situation that had led to the Zephyrian massacre 3 centuries ago. Then Ambassador Lisa Rodriguez of the human delegation stood up. She was small compared to most of the other delegates, but her voice carried clearly through the chamber. She did not shout or make threats. She simply spoke in a calm, reasonable tone. "May I address the council?" she asked. Speaker Morgan nodded, grateful for any chance to restore order. The council recognizes Ambassador Rodriguez of the Human Federation. Rodriguez walked to the center of the chamber, where the holographic displays still showed the disputed star system. She looked at the images for a long moment, then turned to face both sides of the dispute. Both sides have presented excellent arguments, she began. The Cathari claim they discovered the system first. The Crystalline Collective argues they developed it first. I believe both claims are completely correct. The chamber fell silent. How could both sides be right about the same thing? The Cathari invested in exploration, Rodriguez continued. They sent expensive probes across hundreds of light years. They mapped dangerous regions of space. They shared their discoveries with the galactic community. This took courage, resources, and scientific skill. Ambassador Korvash nodded, pleased that someone understood his people's contribution. The Crystalline Collective invested in development, Rodriguez went on. They built cities where none existed. They created jobs for millions of workers. They turned raw materials into useful products. They connected the system to galactic trade networks. This also took courage, resources, and skill. Ambassador Zarthex looked surprised. She had expected the human to take one side or the other, not to praise both. The question is not who was first, Rodriguez said. The question is how to honor both contributions. The Cathari opened the door to the system. The Crystalline Collective built a home inside it. Both actions created value. Both deserve recognition. Dr. Alan Carter watched from the human delegation. Section. He had seen Ambassador Rodriguez use this technique before. She was reframing the entire dispute, changing it from a zero-sum game where one side had to lose into a cooperative solution where both sides could win. "I propose a partnership," Rodriguez announced. The Cathari receive recognition as the legal discoverers of the system. The Crystalline Collective receives recognition as the legal developers. Instead of fighting over who owns what, they work together to make the system more profitable for everyone. She gestured to the holographic displays. The Cathari have the best star charts and navigation data. The Crystalline Collective has the best mining and manufacturing facilities. Combined, they could make the Tau Ceti system the most successful economic zone in this sector of the galaxy. The chamber was completely quiet now. Delegates from dozens of worlds listened as Rodriguez outlined her proposal. The Cathari would receive a percentage of all profits from the system, recognizing their role in its discovery. The Crystalline Collective would continue to manage day-to-day operations, recognizing their role in its development. Both sides keep what they have built, Rodriguez explained, but they also share in what they can build together. The Cathari get rich from mining profits. The Crystalline Collective gets rich from increased trade. Everyone wins. She paused and looked around. The chamber. The alternative is war. The Cathari can try to take the system by force. The Crystalline Collective can try to defend it. Millions of people will die, and the system will be destroyed. Nobody wins. Ambassador Corvash looked at the human with new respect. "You believe this partnership could work?" "I believe it's the only thing that can work," Rodriguez replied. "Fighting over resources is expensive. Sharing resources is profitable." Ambassador Zarthex considered the proposal. Her people were proud, but they were also practical. A partnership would give them access to Cathari technology and exploration data. It would also protect them from future challenges to their development claims. What guarantees would there be? Zarthex asked. The same guarantees that protect. All council agreements, Rodriguez answered. Legal contracts, trade enforcement, and the backing of the galactic community. Plus something more important, mutual benefit. When both sides profit from cooperation, both sides have reasons to keep cooperating. The two ambassadors looked at each other across the chamber. For centuries, their people had been suspicious of each other. But the human proposal offered something neither side had expected. A way to win without making the other side lose. Within an hour, the framework for a partnership agreement was taking shape. The Cathari would provide exploration services and star charts. The Crystalline Collective would provide mining operations and manufacturing facilities. Profits would be shared based on contribution levels that both sides agreed were fair. Other delegates watched in amazement. A dispute that had seemed impossible to resolve was being settled through simple cooperation. No threats had been made. No weapons had been drawn. The solution came from understanding what each side wanted and finding a way to give it to them. As the session ended, Senator Greg Morris of the Altarian Federation leaned over to his aide, Kate Williams. She was a young human who had joined his staff as part of a cultural exchange program. How did Ambassador Rodriguez do that? Morris whispered. 2 hours ago, those species were ready to go to war. Now they're planning to work together. Kate smiled. She didn't do anything. The third day of the council session brought a different kind of tension to the chamber. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about the Cathari Crystalline Collective Partnership Agreement. Some species celebrated this peaceful solution. Others worried about what it might mean for their own territorial disputes. But the biggest concern came from the Vorthic Empire. For 1,000 years, they had been the galaxy's dominant military force. They had conquered dozens of worlds through pure strength and violence. Their entire culture was built around the idea that might makes right. Ambassador Thrakmer stood before the council with his 4 arms spread wide. His massive form cast shadows across the chamber floor. The chitinous plates that covered his body gleamed under the lights, making him look like a living weapon. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign that he was agitated. "Fellow delegates," he began, his voice booming through the chamber. "I have watched the events of the past 2 days with great interest. I have seen weak species negotiate when they should have fought. I have seen valuable resources shared when they should have been claimed by the strong." He paused, letting his words sink in. Several smaller species delegates shifted nervously in their seats. The Vorthik had a reputation for backing up their words with action. "The Vorthik Empire has protected this galaxy for 1,000 years, Thrakmer continued. "We have fought the wars that others could not fight. We have defeated the enemies that others could not defeat. We have maintained the seeing, peace that others could not maintain." Elder Sevtar of the Meridians raised one of his tentacles. "Ambassador Thrakmer, the Council appreciates the Vorthik Empire's contributions to galactic security. But today's session is about trade route regulations, not military matters." Thrakmer's eyes focused on the elderly Meridian. "Everything is a military matter, Elder. Trade routes must be protected. Shipping lanes must be secured. Weak species must be defended from predators." He turned to address the entire chamber. "The Vorthik Empire has decided to expand our defensive perimeter. We will establish military bases in 50 new systems. We will patrol trade routes throughout the Outer Rim. We will ensure that no threats can reach the civilized worlds." The chamber erupted in concerned whispers. The systems Thrakmer mentioned were not empty space. They contained colonies, mining operations, and independent worlds. The Vorthik were essentially announcing a massive territorial grab. Ambassador Zarthix of the Crystalline Collective stood up. Her crystal body flickered with angry red light. "Ambassador Thrakmer, those systems are not yours to claim. Many of them contain our mining operations. Your mining operations exist because we allow them to exist," Thrakmer replied. "You mine in peace because we keep the peace. It is only fair that you contribute to the cost of your own protection." "We never asked for your protection," Zarthix shot back. "You did not need to ask," Thrakmer said. "The strong protect the weak. It is the natural order." Ambassador Korvesh of the Cathari joined the protest. "The Vorthik Empire cannot simply claim sovereign territory belonging to other species. The Council will not allow it." Thrakmer's mandibles clicked louder. "The Council will allow whatever the Vorthik Empire decides it will allow. We have the largest fleet in the galaxy. We have the most powerful weapons. We have the will to use them." The threat was clear and direct. The Vorthik were not asking permission. They were announcing their intentions and daring anyone to stop them. Other delegates began to speak up. The Altarian Federation demanded that the Vorthik respect existing territorial agreements. The Meridian Traders Guild protested that military expansion would disrupt commercial activities. The United Colonies of Rigel pointed out that the Vorthik plan violated dozens of existing treaties, but Thrakmer dismissed each protest with a wave of his massive hand. "Treaties are words on paper," he said. "Words cannot stop plasma cannons. Words cannot defeat battle fleets. Words cannot protect the innocent from those who would harm them." The chamber was descending into chaos. Several smaller species were openly discussing military alliances to resist Vorthik expansion. The larger species were calculating whether they could afford to fight a war against the galaxy's most powerful military force. Then Ambassador Lisa Rodriguez of the human delegation rose from her seat. She was tiny compared to Thrakmer, barely reaching his chest even when he was sitting down. But she walked calmly toward the center of the chamber, showing no fear of the towering Vorthic warrior. "Ambassador Thrakmer," she said in a clear, steady voice, "you raise some interesting points about protection and strength. May I ask you a question?" Thrakmer looked down at the small human. His 4 eyes studied her with curiosity. "You may. Ask, human, but choose your words carefully. What do you think true strength really means?" Rodriguez asked. The question seemed to surprise Thrakmer. He had expected protests or threats, not a philosophical discussion. "Strength is the ability to impose your will on others," he answered. "Strength is having the power to take what you want and keep what you have." Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. "That's one definition, but I wonder if there might be another way to look at it." She began to walk slowly around the chamber, her voice carrying clearly to every delegate. Any species can learn to fight. Any species can build weapons. Any species can conquer territory. Any species can rule through fear. Thrakmer's mandibles clicked impatiently. "Your point, human." "My point is that none of those things require real strength," Rodriguez replied. "They just require biology. Sharp teeth, strong muscles, aggressive instincts. Every predator species in the galaxy has those things." She stopped walking and turned to face Thrakmer directly. "But what if I told you that there's a kind of strength that most species never develop? A kind of power that can't be defeated by weapons or conquered by armies?" The chamber was completely silent now. Every delegate was listening intently to this strange conversation between the tiny human and the massive Vorthic. "What kind of power?" Thrakmer asked, his voice quieter now. Rodriguez took a step closer to the Vorthic ambassador. In any other species, this would have been seen as a suicidal move. Thrakmer was a trained warrior who could kill her with a single blow. But Rodriguez showed no fear. The power to walk into a room full of apex predators without any weapons. "At all," she said. "The power to know that your words carry more weight than any blade. The power to understand that your ideas are more dangerous than any army." She took another step forward. "The Vorthic Empire seeks to expand through conquest. But conquest is temporary. Empires built on fear eventually fall when people stop being afraid. And what does humanity offer instead?" Thrakmer asked. There was genuine curiosity in his voice now, mixed with something that might have been respect. "We offer partnership," Rodriguez said simply. "We offer cooperation. We offer the chance to build something that lasts longer than any empire." Dr. Alan Carter watched from the human delegation section. He recognized what Rodriguez was doing. She was using the Vorthic's own psychological programming against them. The Vorthic were warriors, but they were also intelligent. They understood the concept of superior strategy. "Consider this," Rodriguez continued. "The Vorthic Empire has the strongest military in the galaxy. No one disputes that. But military strength only works when you're willing to use it, and using it destroys the very things you're trying to protect." She gestured to the assembled delegates. "You could conquer every world in this chamber, but conquered worlds don't trade freely. They don't innovate. They don't contribute to galactic civilization. They just resist and rebel until you have to destroy them. What alternative do you suggest?" Thrakmer asked. "Partnership," Rodriguez repeated. "Instead of conquering the outer rim, offer to protect it. Instead of claiming territory, offer to secure it. Instead of taking resources, offer to help develop them." She paused, letting her words sink in. The Cathari and the Crystalline Collective were ready to go to war over a single star system. But when they learned to work together, they both became richer and more secure. The same principle applies to the entire galaxy. Thrakmer was quiet for a long moment. His mandibles had stopped clicking. His 4 eyes studied the human ambassador with new interest. "You believe that cooperation is stronger than conquest?" I believe that cooperation is the only thing that creates lasting strength, Rodriguez replied. Fear works for a while, but it always creates enemies. Respect works forever, and it creates allies. She looked up at the towering Vorthik. Your people are already respected as the greatest warriors in the galaxy. But imagine if you were also respected as the greatest protectors. Imagine if every species in the galaxy wanted to work with you instead of hiding from you. How would this work? Thrakmer asked. Simple, Rodriguez said. Instead of expanding your territory, expand your services. Offer protection to any species that wants it. Offer security to any trade route that needs it. Offer defense to any world that requests it. And in return, you get something no empire has ever achieved, Rodriguez said. You get the willing cooperation of every species in the galaxy. You get access to their technology, their resources, their knowledge. You get to be the center of galactic civilization instead of just its conqueror. The chamber was still silent. Every delegate was processing what they had. The fourth day of the council session began with a different feeling in the chamber. Word of the previous day's events had spread throughout the galaxy. The Vorthik Empire, known for their aggressive expansion, had agreed to pause their military plans. They were considering a partnership approach instead of conquest. This change had shocked many species. The Vorthik had been the galaxy's dominant military force for 1,000 years. They had never backed down from a fight. They had never chosen diplomacy over warfare. Yet somehow, a small human diplomat had convinced them to try a different path. As delegates took their seats, conversations buzzed with speculation. How had the humans managed to achieve what no other species had ever accomplished? What made them so confident in situations where others felt threatened? Elder Savtar of the Meridians had been thinking about this question all night. His species had been part of the council for over 1,000 years. They had seen many civilizations rise and fall. They had witnessed countless wars and peace agreements. But they had never seen anything like what the humans could do. When Speaker Mordon called the session to order, Elder Savtar immediately requested permission to speak. His tentacles swayed slowly as he stood, showing the careful movements of great age. Honored delegates, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I have served on this council for over 2 centuries. I have seen many species join our community. I have watched them learn our ways and adapt to our customs. He paused, looking around the chamber. But I have never seen anything like what we witnessed yesterday. I have never seen a species consistently achieve the impossible through nothing but words. His large eyes focused on the human delegation. Ambassador Rodriguez, my people have a question that has been troubling us for months. We have all wondered about your species' confidence in these chambers. Humans never bring weapons. They never wear armor. They never even seem concerned about their personal safety. The chamber fell silent. This was the question that every species had been thinking about, but no one had dared to ask directly. Is this confidence based on foolishness or wisdom? Elder Savtar asked. Ambassador Rodriguez exchanged glances with Dr. Carter and Commander Stone. They had expected this question eventually. In fact, they had been surprised it had taken so long for someone to ask it directly. Elder Savtar, Rodriguez said, standing slowly. That's an excellent question. But before I answer it, may I ask you something in return? Of course, the elder replied. When you enter these chambers, what do you fear most? The question seemed simple, but Elder Savtar considered it carefully. Physical harm, he said finally. The possibility that words might fail and violence might result. Despite all our laws and security measures, there is always the chance that someone might resort to force. Rodriguez nodded. And you, Ambassador Thrakmer? What do you fear when you enter this chamber? The massive Vorthik straightened in his seat. The Vorthik fear nothing, he said automatically. But then he paused, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. However, we are always prepared for the possibility of conflict. We understand that politics can become warfare without warning. But you bring guards, Rodriguez pointed out gently. You wear armor. You surrender weapons at the door, but only because you're forced to. These are not the actions of a species that has no fears. She looked around the chamber, addressing all the delegates. Every species here has evolved from either predators or prey. Your survival instincts tell you to be ready for physical conflict. Your biology demands that you protect yourselves from potential threats. Dr. Carter stood to join his colleague. May I explain the scientific background, Ambassador? Rodriguez nodded, and Dr. Carter moved to the center of the chamber. As a xenobiologist, he had studied the evolutionary history of dozens of species. Every species in this chamber evolved on worlds where physical survival was the primary concern. He began. The Vorthik evolved from pack hunters who dominated their food chain through strength and aggression. The Cathari evolved from prey animals who survived through speed and cleverness. The crystalline collective evolved from organisms that defended themselves through natural armor and sharp edges. He gestured to the assembled delegates. Your evolutionary history shaped your psychology. When you see a potential threat, your first instinct is to prepare for physical combat. This is not weakness. This is millions of years of successful survival programming. But humans evolved differently, Rodriguez continued. We evolved from primates who survived, not through individual strength, but through social cooperation. Our ancestors learned that the most dangerous predator was not the one with the sharpest claws or the strongest bite. She paused, looking around the chamber. The most dangerous predator was the one that could convince others to hunt for it. The chamber was completely silent. This was a new way of thinking about survival and strength that most species had never considered. Commander Stone joined her colleagues in the center of the chamber. During our evolution, humans developed what we call social intelligence. We learned to read emotions, to understand motivations, to predict behavior. We learned that cooperation could achieve what individual strength could not. But how does this explain your confidence in these chambers? Elder Sevtar asked. Rodriguez smiled. Because we learned something that most species never discover. In a room full of predators, the most protected individual is not the one with the best weapons. It's the one who can convince all the predators to work together. She gestured to the assembled delegates. Look around this chamber. Every species here could destroy humanity in direct military conflict. The Vorthik could crush our worlds with their battle fleets. The Cathari could outmaneuver our ships with their superior technology. The crystalline collective could cut through our defenses with their natural weapons. Then why aren't you afraid? Ambassador Zarthix asked, her crystal body flickering. With curiosity. Because none of you can afford to destroy us, Rodriguez replied simply. We've made ourselves too valuable to kill. Dr. Carter nodded. It's evolutionary game theory. In an environment where everyone else is armed, the unarmed mediator becomes the most protected individual in the room. Everyone needs someone they can trust to settle disputes fairly. You see, Rodriguez continued, while every other species was developing better weapons and stronger defenses, humanity was developing something different. We were learning how to stop fights before they started. She walked slowly around the chamber, her voice carrying to every delegate. The Cathari and Crystalline Collective were ready to go to war over the Tau Ceti system. That war would have cost millions of lives and destroyed valuable resources. But through cooperation, both sides became richer and stronger. The Vorthik Empire was planning to expand through conquest. That expansion would have created decades of resistance, rebellion, and warfare. But through partnership, they can achieve. The same security goals while gaining willing allies instead of hostile subjects. Commander Stone stepped forward. Every conflict costs resources. Every war destroys value. Every battle creates enemies who will seek revenge later. But every successful negotiation creates partners who have reasons to cooperate in the future. We don't carry weapons, Rodriguez said, because we've weaponized trust itself. We don't. Wear armor because our protection comes from being useful to everyone and threatening to no one. Elder Sevtar, Hess tentacles swayed thoughtfully. You're saying that humanity has evolved beyond the need for physical violence? Not beyond the capability, Dr. Carter clarified. Humans can fight when necessary. But we evolved beyond the instinct to see violence as the first solution to problems. We learned that in a galaxy full of warriors, Rodriguez added, the most valuable skill is not knowing how to win wars. It's knowing how to prevent them. Ambassador Corvash of the Cathari leaned forward in his seat. But surely there are times when negotiation fails? What happens when you encounter a species that only understands force? Rodriguez smiled. We convince someone stronger than them to speak for us. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. The human strategy was becoming clear. They didn't need weapons because they had something better. Allies who had weapons and were willing to use them to protect their valuable mediators. You mean you manipulate other species into fighting for you? Thrakmer asked, his mandibles clicking with what might have been approval. Not manipulate, Rodriguez corrected. We create situations where protecting humanity serves everyone's interests. When we help species resolve their conflicts peacefully, they become invested in keeping U.S. safe so we can help them again in the future. Dr. Carter nodded. It's like being the village doctor in ancient times. Everyone protects the doctor because everyone might need medical help someday. We're the galactic equivalent of doctors, but instead of healing bodies, we heal relationships. But what if someone decides you're too dangerous to live? Ambassador Zarthex asked. What if a species decides that human influence is a threat to their power? Commander Stone answered this question. Then they have to fight everyone who benefits from human mediation. And that's becoming a very long list, she gestured around the chamber. The Cathari and Crystalline Collective are now partners instead of enemies because of human intervention. Both species have Rees. The fifth day of the council session would be remembered as a turning point in galactic history. News of Elder Sevtar's proposal had spread throughout the station overnight. Delegates arrived early, eager to discuss the idea of official human. Mediators. Ambassador Rodriguez sat in the human delegation area, reviewing the formal proposal that had been submitted. The document was impressive. Elder Sevtar had worked through the night with representatives from 12 different species to create a comprehensive plan. The proposal called for the creation of a new council position, official galactic mediators. These mediators would be present at all major negotiations between species. They would have no voting power and no authority to make binding decisions. Their only role would be to help other species find peaceful solutions to their disputes. Position would be offered exclusively to humans for an initial period of 50 years. After that, other species could apply if they demonstrated the necessary skills and neutrality. Dr. Carter leaned over to read the document. They're essentially asking us to become the galaxy's professional peacekeepers, he said quietly. It's more than that, Commander Stone observed. They're asking us to take responsibility for preventing wars between species we've never even met. Rodriguez nodded. The question is whether we're ready for that kind of responsibility. Speaker Morden called the session to order, and Elder Sevtar immediately requested permission to present his proposal. The elderly Meridian moved slowly to the center of the chamber, carrying a datapad with the formal documentation. Honored delegates, he began, the past 4 days have shown us something remarkable. We have witnessed disputes that seemed impossible to resolve being settled through patient negotiation. We have seen species choose cooperation over conflict when given the right guidance. His tentacles swayed as he spoke, showing his passion for the subject. The human delegation has demonstrated a unique ability to find peaceful solutions where others see only problems. They have proven that words can be more powerful than weapons when used with wisdom. He activated his datapad, and a holographic display appeared showing statistics from recent council sessions. In the past year, humans have mediated 47 disputes between different species. 46 of those disputes were resolved peacefully. Only one required further intervention from Council security forces. The numbers were impressive. The success rate for human mediation was over 98%. Compare this to the previous year, Elder Sevtar continued. Before humans began serving as unofficial mediators, only 60% of Council disputes were resolved peacefully. The rest required economic sanctions, military intervention, or remained unresolved. Ambassador Thrakmer leaned forward in his seat. Elder Sevtar, what exactly are you proposing? I propose that the Council create a new official position, Galactic Mediator, the Elder replied. These mediators would be present at all major negotiations between species. They would help facilitate communication, identify common interests, and suggest creative solutions. And you believe humans should fill this role? Asked Ambassador Korvash. I believe humans have already proven they can fill this role, Elder Sevtar replied. The question is whether we're wise enough to formalize what they're already doing. Ambassador Zarthek's crystal body flickered with interested colors. What would be the terms of such an arrangement? Elder Sevtar displayed another holographic document. The mediators would have no voting power in Council decisions. They would not represent any particular species or alliance. Their only authority would be to facilitate discussions and suggest solutions. In return, he continued, the Council would guarantee their safety and neutrality. Any attack on a galactic mediator would be considered an attack on the Council itself. All species would be required to provide protection and assistance to mediators operating in their territory. The chamber buzzed with discussions as delegates considered the proposal. Some species were enthusiastic about having professional mediators available for their disputes. Others worried about giving any species, even humans, such a unique position in galactic politics that Ambassador Rodriguez rose from her seat. Speaker Mordoon, may the human delegation respond to this proposal? The Council recognizes Ambassador Rodriguez, Morden replied. Rodriguez walked to the center of the chamber, her expression serious. Elder Sevtar, my people are honored by your confidence in our abilities. But before we can consider accepting such a responsibility, I must ask some difficult questions. She looked around the chamber. What happens when mediation fails? What happens when two species are determined to fight, regardless of any peaceful solutions we might suggest? Then you step aside and let them fight, Thrakmer answered immediately. Mediators are not meant to stop all wars. They are meant to prevent unnecessary wars. Rodriguez nodded. And what happens when a mediator makes a mistake? What happens when our suggestions lead to outcomes that some species consider unfair? Ambassador Korvash considered this question carefully. Mediators would be responsible for the process, not the outcome. If both sides agree to a solution, they must accept responsibility for that decision. There's another concern, Commander Stone said, joining Rodriguez in the center of the chamber. If humans become official mediators, we lose our neutrality in any conflict involving our own species. How would disputes involving human interests be handled? Elder Sevtar had anticipated this question. Human mediators would not participate in any negotiations involving human interests. In such cases, other species would serve as mediators, following the same principles and procedures. Dr. Carter stood to address the scientific implications. There's also the question of training and preparation. If humans are to serve as professional mediators, we need to understand the psychology, culture, and history of every species we might work with. The Council would provide full access to all cultural databases and historical records, Elder Sevtar assured him. Mediators would also have the right to request expert consultants from any species involved in a dispute. Ambassador Rodriguez was quiet for several minutes, considering all the implications. The other delegates waited patiently for her response. This decision would affect the future of galactic diplomacy for generations. There's one more question, she said finally. Why humans? Why not create a mixed species mediation team? Why not rotate the responsibility among different species? The chamber fell silent. This was the heart of the proposal, and everyone knew it. Elder Sevtar's large eyes met Rodriguez's gaze. Because in all my centuries of service to this council, I have never seen any species demonstrate the combination of skills that humans possess. You understand both the psychology of conflict and the economics of cooperation. You can see solutions that others miss because you're not limited by your own species' evolutionary biases. Ambassador Thrakmer's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The Vorthik have always believed that strength comes from the ability to dominate others. But humans have shown us that true strength comes from the ability to unite others. The Cathari pride ourselves on our logical thinking, Ambassador Corvash added. But human logic includes emotional and social factors that we often overlook. Ambassador Zarthek's crystal body shimmered with agreeable colors. The crystalline collective values precision and clarity. But humans understand that sometimes the best solutions are not the most obvious ones. Rodriguez looked at her colleagues. Dr. Carter nodded slowly. Commander Stone gave a slight shrug that meant she would support whatever decision Rodriguez made. The human delegation accepts the responsibility, Rodriguez announced. But with conditions. The chamber waited to hear what those conditions would be. First, Rodriguez said, human mediators must be volunteers. No one can be forced to serve in this role. Second, mediators must receive regular rotation. No one should serve for more than 5 years without a break. Third, the Council must establish a training academy for future mediators from all species. Humans may be the first official mediators, but we should not be the last. Elder Sevtar's tentacles swayed with pleasure. These conditions are acceptable. To the Council. Then let's put it to a vote, Speaker Mordon announced. The vote was unanimous. Every species present supported the creation of official galactic mediators and the appointment of humans to fill the initial positions. As the session ended, delegates approached the human delegation to congratulate them and discuss future mediation needs. The Vorthik wanted help restructuring their expansion plans into partnership agreements. The Catharian Crystalline Collective wanted assistance setting up their new joint ventures. 3 other species had territorial disputes they hoped could be resolved peacefully. Ambassador Rodriguez found herself surrounded by species representatives, all eager to schedule mediation sessions. The demand for human services was already exceeding their capacity. We're going to need more mediators, she said to Dr. Carter as they walked through the station corridors. We're going to need a whole new diplomatic corps, Carter replied. This is bigger than anything humanity has ever attempted. Commander Stone was more optimistic. It's also the ultimate guarantee of human survival. As long as we're useful to everyone and threatening to no one, we'll be the most protected species in the galaxy. As they